Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today's guest is Alexis Hatchett, and she's a creative executive over at Queens Collective Media in association with Blue Shore Films. Alexis, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Adam.
All right. For everybody listening, this is a very special episode. So this is part of our Milken Global Conference series where we feature individuals that attended and participated in the Milken Conference. And so happy to bring this to you. And I guess, Alexis, before we get into your work, and also we got a lot to cover here, especially about talking about Hollywood and media and is it under fire? What does diversity look like in that equation? So we'll get into all that. But first, to start out with the Milken Conference. So I've been long going for years now, and it's one of my favorite times of the year. What brought you to the conference?
You know what? A good friend of mine just recently joined the Milken team in D.C. Yeah, and, she's got a great role there. So she was part of the team that actually helped put on the conference. And, wow. Yeah, and she serves as well as one of their diversity initiatives as well. And so it was really great to just, obviously see her again because we've been friends since I used to live in New York, and also just meet the rest of the team. It's a great team. They have, that whole team that puts it on is amazing. It's a lot of them, but I was able to meet her core team of mostly women, too.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that was great. I think he's done a great job of just really paying attention to having a diverse workforce as a part of his team. And he holds so much influence, as we know. So I just thought that was great, too, to see that that's something that I think is important to him as a business owner.
That's amazing. Let's switch it up a bit here. So I want to get into the overall topic, talking about diversity in Hollywood, media, and really just in general what's going on in the industry. I guess in order to start this discussion, we probably got to go back a little bit. So let's talk about maybe going back to the strikes that occurred in 2023. And do you think the industry's rebounded, or what's your vantage point?
No. I don't think the industry, unfortunately, I don't think the industry has rebounded. And I don't think many of us, at least people that I've been speaking to in the business, really foresaw it panning out this way after the strike. A lot of us were very hopeful that things would just get right back on track and, everything would go full speed ahead again because a lot of people had projects that were already in negotiation when the strikes happened, a lot of pending things. And so everyone was just ready to just get back to work. And that's also including production and crew. I think sometimes people forget that in order to get these projects made, film and television, it takes, the talented folks on the crew behind the scenes, to get it going. And it's really been slow from every, aspect. And so production has really slowed down. A lot of people have ended up actually moving from the LA area, looking for opportunities elsewhere in other states that have been trying to entice Hollywood and film crews to come and shoot there. And so people are just doing what they can. But it's interesting to see the trickle-down effect that it's had. And it's basically from, just projects not being greenlit at the level, that they were pre-strike. And then we already were coming off of the pandemic, before the strike. So Hollywood they were doing well rebounding from that, so to speak, for the most part, except for in the film industry in particular, the box office, that still is not where it was,
Yeah, for sure.
They're still working to recover from that. And so then you add when the strikes happened and then things just, slowing down with production, whether it be film or television. It's been a lot.
It's a weird thing for me to consider. I have this conversation often with friends, and it's like, okay, it's kind of like I don't know if I could say a chicken and the egg analogy because that's not maybe exactly correct, but it's kind of like there's less movies out for the most part, and maybe things that like to get somebody to a theater after the pandemic, like it's gotta be something that, makes people want to get up and get out, right? Like it's not necessarily easy to get people there. So now box off and now, but but also, so not singling out any one particular movie, but now when you do go to the box office, I mean, I've had quite a few misses I went to watch, and I can keep saying, well, the writers aren't, or this aren't there, or this isn't there, and like, you know, but then in the other side of things, it's like, well, dang, if I'm going and I'm not necessarily enjoying the product for some experiences, it kind of keeps me at home still. It makes me less likely to want to go back, and I'm like, yeah, I'll watch that one later. So it's kind of like this, I don't know, it's this almost this holding pattern of like, when are they going to start greenlighting some things? When is it going to be up and running? Or does it even go back, or does it slowly decentralize to other areas and other, like, you know, crews or other regions? I don't know. I don't have those answers. These are just the conversations I'm having, and I'm sure you're having them too, right?
Yes, I mean, it's all, you know, I literally just had 2 calls today and about 3 yesterday with projects that we've been having in development for a while now, and this is the major topic of conversation. If it's not my own business that I'm dealing with, I'm talking to just other people in New York and, you know, and in Atlanta and some of the other hot spots for production, and everyone is saying the same thing, everyone. And Atlanta, they're really taking a hit too, because I think, you know, I'm sure you've heard that Atlanta kind of also became like Little Hollywood Part 2.
Oh, for sure. Tyler Perry and the whole, like, the machine out there. Yeah.
Yes, there's a machine out there, but they have really slowed down.
Really?
Yeah. So production there has really, really hit them hard as well. So it is, it's something else. And I think there's a lot of people I know personally, but just in general, who moved from here, from LA to Atlanta. You know, a few years ago, because of the work, there was just more work there. And then also the cost of living was a little better. And so people made that decision a few years ago, and some just as, you know, as little as maybe 3 years ago. And so all of a sudden you find yourself relocating, and now the industry you moved there to relocate to is at a standstill, basically. So it's just putting people between a rock and a hard place in a lot of different ways that just nobody could have foresaw.
Yeah, that's like you move for it, and now look, oh man, that's tough. I want to switch it up a bit here, Alexis. So I want to get a little bit into, I mean, this is a conversation that's coming up often, and just in the state of the country in general, when we talk about diversity, and when we think about, you know, diversity in Hollywood or otherwise, do you think the diversity, it's an important initiative when it comes to, like, especially like the streaming platforms and studios? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think that the diversity is extremely important when it comes to the streaming platforms, because it has shown, you know, statistics have really shown that the more diverse a cast and crew is, the better the project does. And so by diverse, you know, we also mean people of color, but women. And so when you add those 2 factors together, which have historically been, those 2 groups of people have historically been a little lower in the industry as far as work is concerned, but there's been a concerted effort, I'd say, really in the last decade, to improve that. In the industry, it's been a slow climb, but it's been a climb. And you've got people who have bigger names who have been helping that plight, actually, for it to get better. And so it's been proven that the more people made an effort for that, to bring more women on board and have more women-led projects, whether it be women lead as an actress and on the acting positions, or as directors, writers, as part of, you know, gaffers, all the production, different roles that there are. And there's just been an uptick, and they've shown that those projects have been mostly more profitable, more so than the projects that were a little bit more heavily male run. And so, and audiences of color and women had the biggest box office winners in 2023, post-pandemic. So the numbers are there. So it's proven that has been something that was a positive thing to focus on for Hollywood. And so it's just unfortunate that amongst some of the progress that was being made in those areas, we're finding that's also slowing down. Everything is slowing down. It's almost like, oh, you took 2 steps forward to take 5 back. So that's how some people are feeling. And so if you were lucky enough to kind of get your foot in the door, I'll say maybe as a woman doing things, directing maybe for the first time and that kind of thing, or you were lucky to get your foot in the door either before the pandemic or before the strikes occurred. There's a lot of people who are just having a harder time just kind of breaking through some of those barriers if they hadn't done it already. And then some people just found themselves literally at a standstill, like they were on their way, they had deals going on, and it looked really promising. And then all of a sudden, you've got some deals that fell through. So, and people are still looking for ways to get their projects up and running. And so I hear a lot of that right now, of people just trying to get stalled projects up and running.
Well, Alexis, I'm curious, what's next for you? Like, what are you working on? What are you aiming to do next? Like, talk a little bit more about your neck of the woods.
Yeah, so for me, honestly, I have been sliding in more into the documentary space since all this stuff has been going on. Yeah, which is really interesting. I didn't really see that pathway for me initially.
Yeah.
But it opened up. And so I have worked on 2 real progressive documentaries. One was called Birthing Justice, and that one was about the decline of women of color when they give birth and the high death rates that happen.
Wow.
Yeah, who give birth. And what that's about, and just exploring the medical system and some of the prejudices, unfortunately, that run rampant in the industry against women of color that contribute to that. There's been lawsuits and all kinds of things. Even, and what was big to bring that issue to the forefront are women who have major platforms, like Serena Williams is a good example, where she almost died giving birth to her first child. So, and she was very vocal about that. So that was a really great project to be a part of. And then my most recent documentary that I was working with a great group of ladies is called The M Factor, Shedding the Silence. And so that's about menopause, perimenopause and menopause. But shedding the silence is the motto because for women, menopause has just been a very taboo topic. For a long time, a lot of women just did not grow up knowing anything about it. It was just one of those topics, like even myself, I never really had conversations with my mom about what she went through. None of my friends, we never really talked about it. And so what's happening in my age group now, women are talking about it more because what's happening is more professionals, female gynecologists and other females in the medical profession, they're going through it themselves and realizing we don't know anything about this. Like they really weren't able to provide their own clientele with good advice on what was going on because, it's really something. And a lot of it has to do with they just weren't trained on it in medical school. So it's a lot. And so the M Factor is a really great documentary that sheds light on that. It sheds light on some of the great women professionals in the industry who are doing the best they can to sound the alarm and, get information out there, writing amazing books. And a lot of women are coming out now with different product lines specifically designed for women going through peri and menopause. And it's becoming, honestly, like a $1 billion industry. And then you've got people like Oprah, who I had the pleasure of, being around earlier this year in March because she had a special that aired on ABC back in March, and she taped it here. She filmed it, in LA at CBS Studios. So our team was invited to go, and it was amazing. And so she had people like Maria Schwarzenegger, Naomi Watts, who were there because each of these ladies have done their fair share of, again, sounding the alarm, getting information out there and coming up with their own products as well, whether it be books or actual products that are for women going through it. And so when you've got those kind of heavy hitters, those women sounding the alarm, it does make a difference. And so now it's no longer that taboo anymore. Women are talking about menopause all over the place, and nobody feels ashamed or embarrassed or anything like that because it's really nothing to be ashamed or embarrassed about. We want to be armed with information. So our documentary does a wonderful job with that, giving women the information they need and giving them the confidence they need to speak with their healthcare professionals and just feel a lot more informed about their health so that they can take control of something that's very manageable. So as long as you have the information, it's very manageable. So that's done well, and that took off on an international level, actually. Like, it really got, great buzz. So that's been a great project. And so those have kind of kept me busy in outside of my other scripted projects that we are caught up kind of in the waiting game of waiting to get things approved or greenlit. And so you just kind of you got to pivot.
Yeah.
You got to pivot and just find ways. But the documentary space is a space that I've noticed has continued to kind of march ahead, whether they be independently financed or, deals that were already inked prior to the strikes and things of that nature. So it's been a good space, though. It's been a good space. So that's...
Well, what a great story, Alexis, and thank you for sharing those projects with us. So that's amazing. That being said, how do people follow up? How do they follow your work, either see these documentaries or just follow you in general and keep up? Talk a little bit more about that.
Oh, that's great. Well, honestly, my personal website is under construction and it's a complete mess right now. But you can go to some of the projects that I am a part of to know more about that and get more information on those topics. The two documentaries I was mentioning, there's the mfactor.com and then there's birthingjustice.com. I'm also an associate producer for a small talk show that just launched, the ML Show, and so that's another place where you can find us on Instagram there, the ML, the Melina Lawrence Show. What else? Where else can you find me? That's pretty much where you could pretty much find, the projects that I'm working on. It's, more information on projects I'm working on. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, and for the audience, just so you know, we'll put some of those links in the show notes so you can just click on them and head right on over. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. Each and every day we're bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way on your journey as well. So again, hit that subscribe or follow button. And Alexis, I look forward to continuing to follow you, follow your career, and just keep on watching you get those projects out. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Adam. This was wonderful. Really enjoyed it.